Let me start off by saying, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahak Wadash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Ruwell, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah. Today's lesson, do you believe now? Now, there is a lot happening today in Senate. Here you have news coverage after news coverage regarding the C-19VAX deception. And when the true men of the Lord spoke of the harmful ingredients and of the dangers of the C-19VAX juice, many thought that we were telling lies and that we were totally crazy. Like, for instance, my neighbor and those of my own family line. Unto those people I say, do you believe now? Since you are hearing it from Senate itself, from the horse's mouth, as they say. Now take a look at this Senate hearing debate regarding the C-19VAX. What do you think, that we make this stuff up?
Nothing to see here. This is safe and this is effective. Okay? Next chart. This is the current VAERS chart. 38,607 deaths reported worldwide associated with the COVID injection. And we know VAERS dramatically understates, by a factor of 10, 100? We know it understates it. 9,228 of those deaths are occurring on the day of vaccination, the 1 or 2 days. Okay, I know VAERS doesn't prove causation, but man, that's a correlation we should have been looking at, but they ignored and they censored. But enough of that. Dr. McCulloch, please, in my layman's terms, I just kind of laid out the harmful mechanisms of this injection. Can you and Dr. Vaughn, because I think you've both spoken to this, again, in layman's terms, talk about why this caused so much harm in so many different ways because of the biodistribution. Dr. McCulloch.
80% of Americans took a vaccine. 20% didn't. 20% did not take a vaccine. The vaccine was never safe enough for me to take. Messenger RNA, devised by Pfizer and Moderna, has been chemically modified to be unassailable to enzymes in the body to be broken down. The messenger RNA is found in the human heart of people who die after the vaccine. It's found in the brain. The spike protein is found everywhere in the body. 3 studies now show the spike protein is circulating in the blood for 6 to 9 months after people take the shot. This part of the virus, the lethal part of the virus, in the vaccinated, it's circulating in the blood. And then they take a booster, they get more circulating in the blood. It is a killer protein. It cannot be safe. It was not safe by design. Safety trumps efficacy. We cannot tolerate false drug claims. And we saw a poster behind Senator Blumenthal making a false drug claim that vaccines saved millions of lives, specifically the COVID vaccine. Well, let's take a look at that. When someone signs consent for a vaccine, Senator Blumenthal, does the consent form say it's going to save their lives? Of course it doesn't. It's not on the FAQ. There's never been a prospective, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial ever showing that COVID-19 vaccines reduce mortality or hospitalization. There's not even a valid non-randomized study. Thankfully, COVID mortality went down for 3 reasons. Because we all got the infection, vaccinated and unvaccinated, so we developed population natural immunity. We developed early treatment. Credit to Operation Warp Speed. We used all the Operation Warp Speed tools, additional drugs. We treated patients with multi-drug protocols at home so they don't go to the ER. So Governor Green never saw the patients we treated because they were successfully treated at home. And the third reason is that the virus mutated to a much milder form. Those things happen concurrently with rollout of the vaccine. The vaccine cannot be falsely credited with saving millions of lives. We can't allow false drug advertising to be put up on a poster behind one of our public servants. We cannot accept that.
So let me quick. And I will have a lot more. I will have a lot more questions. Put up that optional chart number 4 here, because I think this is something I developed September 2021, and this shows the number of daily cases of COVID, and you see it's peaking in January. Right as we're rolling out the vaccine, but we really haven't injected it with anybody. If by the time we had any kind of significant uptake of the vaccines, we were way down in terms of the number of daily cases. I mean, this virus was burning itself out. Okay, now we had different variants. Again, I've read a lot of information about vaccination into the midst of a pandemic driving variants. Is that what happened? I don't know. But you would think if a vaccine were that effective, the tail would just continue and the pandemic would be over. But that's not what happened. We had a whole new surge, and this is Delta, and doctors I've talked to, very deadly, probably a more deadly. Would you agree with that, Dr. McCulloch? Delta was more deadly. I know you guys are kind of freaking out that your early treatment wasn't working as well.
It was definitely more difficult to treat. But fortunately, by that time, we had treatments.
But anyway, I just wanted to put this thing up here again. Again, to a layman, if the vaccine really worked, was that efficacious, prevent all that disease? By the way, they all admitted that it didn't prevent transmission. They lied to us about that for 4 months, maybe a year. Then they finally had to admit it didn't prevent transmission. But again, this chart right here just shows you that if the vaccine really would have worked, you wouldn't have had this. You wouldn't have had this. But I'll turn it over to Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I think we'll try to certainly stay within our 7 minutes so our colleagues can have their day of questioning.
But again, we'll have second, third, fourth rounds. I mean, we'll use up the time of this hearing room.
The debate here seems to be about the efficacy of COVID-19. But the central issue that brings us here today is the allegation that there was purposeful concealment of knowledge and evidence. And I just want to make the point, I may be sounding a little bit like a lawyer, not a physician, but purposeful concealment, intentional hiding is essentially undocumented by the evidence released by this report itself. In fact, the documents released by the majority today show that public health officials took multiple steps in the spring of 2021 to make healthcare providers aware of those rare reports of myocarditis among vaccine recipients. On May 14th, almost 2 weeks before the CDC decided to issue clinical considerations rather than a HAN on myocarditis, which is, by the way, the primary piece of evidence that the majority cites in this so-called cover-up. The CDC's National Center of Immunization and Respiratory Disease sent an email to state and local health departments around the country entitled, quote, "Monitoring Reports of Myocarditis," end quote. The email noted risks and contained a reminder that providers were obligated to report cases. 5 days later, they sent out a follow-up email urging recipients to let providers in their region know of risks and reminding them once again of the obligation to report cases.
And what you have here is a house divided against itself. That's found upon the scripture of Mark 3:24 and 25. A house divided cannot stand. And here upon this image, you have those that approve and those that oppose. And when you hear of deceitful cases such as this C19 VAX issue, that people tend not to trust. And that VAX upon the body, inside the body, is still working upon those that took it. And not in a good way either. Just take a look at the titles of the videos on these side columns. On the side column here, which says doctor reveals undisclosed risks of C19 VAX. And here you have another video live video, that is, saying live, C19VAX caused 74% deaths. Dr. McCullough's shocking Senate statement goes viral. You see that? Like I said, we do not make this stuff up. But when we told you the truth from the very beginning, before all this, a high majority did not believe. But I say, do you believe now when it's coming straight from the horse's mouth? The scriptures speak about non-believers. It gives a clear message for the non-believers. What if some did not believe? And everything that goes on in society ties in with the scriptures. We are not ignorant to their devices. And here we have the scripture of Romans 3:3. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? In other words, are you going to stop prophecy from fulfilling itself due to the unbelief or your unbelief? The answer is no. You will not stop this. No one can stop what has already been set in motion. In this day and age, people actually need to see in order to believe. Blessed are those that believe and yet have not seen. But when they see all hell breaking loose, just as the prophecies have said, that's when they shall believe and say, there was a prophet among us. And when all hell breaks loose upon this earth, many Israelites shall perish in their unbelief. So if you put that all together, what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? The Most High forbid. Yeah, let the Most High be true, but every man a liar, as it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings, and mightest overcome when thou art judged. God forbid, meaning no. Let the Most High be true, but every man a liar, meaning that everything written and spoken of in these scriptures by the Lord, Yahweh Yahushai, will fulfill itself and eventually come to pass. Plus, the word of the Lord does not go back void according to the scripture of Isaiah 55:11. It gets accomplished. On top of that, the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, is not a man that he shall lie. And this is written upon the scripture of Numbers 23:19 in the Old Testament. And for those who still do not believe, that will not stop the truth of the righteous biblical song from being heard in these end times. Nor will the truth be overthrown. This truth cannot be overthrown. Nor will the truth be overthrown due to the prophecy of Matthew 24:14. Let's go over to that scripture. And here we have that scripture of Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And this gospel of the kingdom has been preached in all the world by means of the internet. By the men also being in those highways and byways. Because there are also brothers in all different lands. That's why the scripture of Romans 10:18 has said, but I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. Right, the truth has been heard by means of the internet. Unto the ends of the world represents the Western Hemisphere, the New World. And when you hear of the deceitful cases such as this C19VAX juice issue, that people tend not to trust anymore. And especially when this just went viral. When it goes viral, forget it. No one's going to trust that medical field. The scripture of Ecclesiasticus or Sirach 12:10 has said to never trust thine enemy. Ecclesiasticus or Sirach 12:10, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Meaning that the wickedness of Edom is just as destructive as rust upon iron. So in other words, his destructive ways of deception is compared to rust upon iron when oxidized. And when it comes to Edom's destructive ways of deception, the hopeful elect of the Lord are not ignorant. Then they wonder why the people do not trust the medical field. There are forgers of lies and physicians of no value. And that's due to the lies and deception in which they push. Even the schools tell the children lies, like for instance, like the lie of how did the Europeans take Manhattan? That they bought it from the Indians for $24 worth of beads. What a big lie that is. And that's a big lie because we all know that the Native American Indians were experts in bead making. You couldn't think of anything better than that? And on top of that, weak lies too. With that being said, let's go over to the scripture of Job 13:4. Job 13:4. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. Right, a forger of lies is a person who fabricates and produces fraudulent false statements for the sole purpose of deception. Like that character Fauci, which everybody talks about. Right, as in the case of that deceptive VAX juice that caused 74% of deaths. These are the statistics, not mine. I didn't make this up. Esau, Edom are those forgers of lies and that wicked race according to the scripture of Malachi 1:4. Those of the world trust in the devices of the system, but when it comes to the men of the Lord, they are not ignorant to their devices. Those men put their trust upon the Lord Yahweh wa Yahushai. Plain and simple. And without the Most High and His Son, we are truly nothing. With that being said, let's go over to 2 Corinthians 2:11. Here we have the scripture of 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Satan means adversary and refers to Edom being the wicked, that wicked adversary in the flesh, according to Malachi 1:4. For we are not ignorant of his devices represents the hopeful elect of the Lord, knowing of Edom's plans of wickedness. Whether it's through their theological cemetery lies in which they push, or by the deceptive medical juice they give unto the people, we are not ignorant to their many destructive devices. And the reason I abbreviate is because many videos upon this topic of the C19 VAX juice was yanked out. So in other words, the hopeful elect are not ignorant to Edom's devices to destroy the true children of Israel, which consists of so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And when it comes to this kingdom, this is not your rest. Here we have that scripture of Micah 2:10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with a sword destruction. Israelites, depart from among the ways and philosophies of this wicked world. It's not telling you to go overseas. This wicked system is polluted and will destroy you physically, mentally, financially, and spiritually with a sore destruction. And the etymology of sore meaning in a painful, grievous, wounding, or suffering way. And this wicked way of life is not Israel's true rest. Israel's rest begins in these scriptures, but that ultimate rest shall be in the kingdom. But when it's all said and done, Israel's true rest will be in the righteous kingdom of the Lord Yahweh Wa Yahushai. But with that being said, Kal Allahu Malak Yahweh Wa Yahushai Bahashem Rachak Wadash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Ruel. Blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Barakatah.